I'm going to be sharing my screen now. Everybody can see that? Okay. So again, thank you for joining. I'll just start running through this. We want to give you some updates on the Southside Park Stormwater Management project, as well as something that's going to be a precursor to this work, which is the 2021 large diameter sewer rehab. This is going to be some preliminary work to prepare for these stormwater improvements. Now, I already did welcome and introductions. However, before we go any further, I saw that Senator Costa has joined the call. Senator Costa, I just wanted to open it up to you to any remarks before I go any further.
Sorry, it's not Senator Costa. It's Sue Conroy from his office. So I'm here representing them. Hi.
Hi, thanks for joining.
Sure.
So yeah, we're going to go over a brief stormwater overview, kind of more of a programmatic look at what PWSA does to manage stormwater. We're going to talk about this large diameter sewer rehabilitation work that is going to be the first thing you see out in the park. So there's going to be some construction activity kicking off soon. So we want to make you aware of that and just remind you all, or, you know, if you haven't been to one of these meetings before, what the stormwater improvements a little further down the line are going to be as well. And then we're just going to open it up to questions and discussion. So as I mentioned, PWSA is the owner of this project. I introduced Megan to you. She is the PWSA project manager. As we go from design to construction, one of our team members, Bill Lestrick, is going to become the construction project manager and actually oversee the work being done on site. And if you've not met me at meetings before, my name is Maura McLaughlin, and I am the PWSA Construction Communications Project Manager. So I assist our engineering and construction teams in doing outreach and connecting with the community on some of our water, sewer, and stormwater projects. Construction management and inspection, which is kind of a third-party activity that we have to ensure that our design plans are being followed and correctly implemented in the field, is going to be done by Mott McDonald. I mentioned Stephanie Downs, who joined this call. And the project designer for this work, which was the planning process that led up to this, was a firm called HDR Engineering. And we did award the contract to W.A. Petrakis. So you'll see Petrakis workers out there in the park. We also just want to take a moment to thank Friends of Southside Park for their partnership throughout the design and planning process. They've been a great community partner and, you know, understanding the needs of the area, of the neighborhood as we work towards the start of construction. Sorry. There we go. I'm just going to give you a brief stormwater overview. If you've lived here for any amount of time, or at least one rainy season, you know that Pittsburgh has a stormwater management problem. There's really no two ways about that. Our system was not built for the volume of stormwater that we experience now in modern times. When this system was built over 100 years ago, we did not have as much pavement, as many hard surfaces, parking lots, tops of buildings, things like that. And all of that impervious surface, which is what we call it, contributes to water finding its ways to new places and not seeping into the ground. So when we have more rain and we have more localized severe storms, that system that was built to carry water away is not built to handle that volume. So too much stormwater plus sewer water equals pollution in our rivers. PWSA, like a lot of older water systems and sewer systems in the country, have what we call combined sewer systems, which means that some sewer pipes carry both sanitary sewage from buildings as well as stormwater. And so those combine on a good day when there's not heavy flows, that water makes its way to the treatment plant. But when there is an influx in stormwater, those combined pipes can overflow. And it can happen with just an inch of rainfall or even less. So what that amounts to, what that ultimately causes, is pollution in our waterways, which we of course want to avoid. So to tackle our stormwater challenges, we're building stormwater management systems that are designed to absorb or redirect as much rainwater as possible before it causes flooding or enters those overburdened sewer systems and eventually into our waterways surrounding the city. So we know one of our biggest features is our riverways. So we want to keep those clean and healthy for recreation all the time. And so with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Megan, who's going to give some Southside Park Stormwater Project updates for you all. We're going to talk about some of the preliminary findings that we did before we dive into the stormwater portion of this work, some project timelines, and some impacts to the neighborhood and the park. Megan, take it away.
Thanks, Maura. So I think a lot of you are aware of the Southside Park Improvement Project. You've been with us all along, attending meetings, and you have a good understanding. Most everyone has a good understanding of what we're planning in the park. I'm going to go over it at a super high level. We'll get into the details of the park project with you all as we get closer to construction. But I wanted to tell you tonight about some of the movement you're going to start seeing in the park over the next as we prepare to really get into the construction of the stormwater project. So this Southside Park Improvement Project is a collaboration between the PWSA and the city DPW, where PWSA is providing the stormwater facilities for the project, and the city DPW is providing the park amenities. The project has been in the works for several years now. Like I said, a lot of you have been with us, all along the way through our planning process. We have had some delays due to permitting and, just COVID slowing things down, but also before we got out there, we wanted to make sure that the PWSA infrastructure that's currently in the park could support this type of construction activity and this type of stormwater management project. So I just want to let you know what we're working on in the area within the next few months. So this slide shows 3 major projects that PWSA is working on. You can see in the blue, that's the M16 watershed, and it's kind of encompasses a large portion of the Southside slopes and flats. PWSA is concentrating our efforts in this area to 3 major projects: the Southside Flats, which is a sewer separation project, which will remove stormwater from the combined system, which will open up a lot of capacity in our system. That is in bid now. I think that bid was actually open today, and we're planning to start construction in spring on that one. So you'll see some activity out there on South 18th and 19th between East Carson. I think it goes up to Wharton Street. So you'll see a lot of movement in that area to kind of increase our capacity in our systems. The next project, actually the first project that we're doing out there, is the 2021 large diameter sewer. We're starting that in March of this year. So you'll start to see construction activities out there, and I'll explain to you a little bit more as we move through here what we're going to be doing. And once those activities are complete, we will gear up for the Southside Park Improvement Project, which also entails, a major portion of that is the PWSA work, which we're planning on starting in fall of 2024. So these all align with the M16 project goals, which are reducing combined sewer overflows, creating capacity in our system. The goal for the park itself is to treat 1.5 inches of stormwater over 9 acres of impervious area, capture that on site, and slowly release it back into the system. I think the last time that we presented to you for our final design was way back in August 2019, and not much has changed with the overall concept. We are just moving that concept and the design into a final package that we can go to bid with. And it says here that we're 90% design, but I would say that we're probably farther along than that. We're just getting it bid ready at this point. So Maura, next one. So the current project that we're working on, how did we get there? During the survey for the Southside Park Stormwater Project, we realized that the large diameter sewer that is located underneath the park and runs the entire length of the park was in need of repair and structural reinforcement prior to the start of Southside Park. So before we go out there and we start moving dirt, before we have construction equipment on top of that large diameter sewer, which carries a huge amount of sewage through the sewer shed, we need to make sure that it's structurally sound. So the work that we're doing is from the bottom of the Serpentine stairs all the way down into South 21st Street. And to accommodate that work, we will be starting the Southside Park project uphill in the north or south of the Serpentine stairs. And once the lining and the water work that I'll show you here in a minute is finished, we'll move through there with the stormwater project. So next one, Maura. So the overall goals of the stormwater project is to reduce combined sewer overflows, to reduce basement backups, create capacity in our system, and slow the flow of stormwater from these higher areas down through the sewer shed. Next one. So a lot of you have already seen this graphic. This is our plan for the park. It starts up in the existing playground area, which will consist of, subsurface storage. We'll be capturing the seeps from the hillside and carrying them through the park with swales down through our stepped stormwater facilities. We'll have stormwater in the proposed parking lot area all the way down adjacent to the site in the South 21st Street open space there, where we'll tie back into the existing system. So it's a really long linear stormwater system where we have kind of multiple systems all along the length of the park. So currently, like I said, our design group, which consists of Ethos and Pashik, plus MTR, they are putting together our final bid package, and hopefully we'll be done with that this summer to go to construction, hopefully this fall. Prior to that project, the stormwater project, PWSA is going to go in and rehabilitate the large diameter sewer that runs from the Serpentine stairs down into South 21st Street. We'll be lining the existing 72-inch sewer. I think it's over 1,200 feet of sewer, large diameter sewer. And we'll be replacing two 30-inch water mains that run under the Mission Street Bridge. Next one, Maura. So this graphic is not as beautiful as the last one, and it's rotated on its side. So here on the left, you'll see the Serpentine stairs. And running to the right is going north up to South 21st Street. So this is the length of the sewer that we're replacing in the park. So we're going to come in, you'll see us starting in March. We're first going to raise some existing manholes to grade. So you'll see us, excavating to try to determine where our sewer manholes are that were buried over the course of time. And then we will proceed to line the pipe with a spray-on liner. Once that's finished, you can go to the next slide, Maura. Once that's finished, there are two 30-inch water mains that are located under the Mission Street Bridge. This is you're looking at the Mission Street Bridge here, what's underneath it. So there's a lot of lines on here, but in blue, you can see that those are the two areas that we're going to replace the water lines. So that is work that needs to be done prior to the Southside Park stormwater construction. So here we are. We finished our design for the rehab of our infrastructure. We are in January, having the pre-construction meeting for that work. We're going to start that work in March. You'll see us moving out there. We're going to have the rehab of these facilities, this infrastructure done by the end of 2024. And this stormwater management and park improvements will pick up towards the end of 2024. So, impacts to the neighborhood. So the entire construction project will be located within the park, from the Serpentine Stairs down to South 21st Street. The contractor will close the Mission Street steps and the from the Serpentine steps as well. So there will be no pedestrian access from the Serpentine Stairs down to South 21st Street and from the Mission Street Bridge as well. Water and sewer service will be maintained for all residents, and we will be updating on our project website there that Maura is listed, pgh2o.com/Southside Park. And we will share information with Friends of Southside Park throughout the project. Next one. So these are the contacts. You can reach out to me, Maura, Stephanie Downs at Motmac, and her group will be at the site every day. So they'll know, really have a grasp and a good hold on what's going on out there. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Stephanie as well. And again, that's our PWSA site. And I think that's it for our brief presentation about what we're planning there in the next few months.
Thank you, Megan. So with that, so I can see everybody coming back. If there's something that you want to look at on the presentation, I can pull it back up again. We can take a look at those maps. But at this point, I just want to open it up to any questions. It's been a little while since you've heard from us, so.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Jeff Neubauer. When are you going to be closing access to like the parking area above below the Mission Street, but on 21st Street going up?
Below?
Well, it's if you're standing on Mission Street Bridge and you look down, you'll see the parking lot. When will that be closed? Because that's where a lot of your construction is going to be.
Yeah, that will probably be closed pretty early in the project. That will be closed as soon as they start out there in March, because they'll need to access, the construction group will need that to access those manholes, like I said, along the length of that line. So we don't want pedestrians coming through there once they start moving in there.
So it'll be closed from March to have an estimated date.
Yeah, I mean, their timeline is through the end of the year. I think they should be finished out there by November. So yeah, it's most likely going to be for the entire year.
Thank you.
Yeah, part of the Mission Street Bridge stairs will be closed as well. Part of the water line actually runs under the stairs, so we have to remove the lower section of stairs and put it back when we're finished. So there will be no pedestrian access through the area.
Okay.
We are actually fabricating some closure signs that will be directing people and directing them on detours soon. So we'll have those ready for the start of construction.
Yeah, because it does get quite a bit of foot traffic with people going down to the flats from the slopes. So
yeah,
okay, just as long as we give them a heads up and they know a path they can take, then that's what we need to do.
Yeah, we'll have a whole detour plan out there with pedestrian signs showing everyone, from Josephine and South 21st Street how to detour, and from the Serpentine Stairs and from Mission Street how to detour around.
Okay.
Lori, I see you raising your hand.
Yes, hello. I did see the diagram where you showed the green infrastructure that was going to be installed. Could one of you talk a little bit more about that? What types of green infrastructure are you using?
Yeah, I noticed, I don't want to put him on the spot here, but I noticed Barton Kirk is on the call. I don't know if you're still on here, Barton.
I am, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Barton is our engineer with Ethos Collaborative, and he's done, you know, the majority of the design for this project. I know that you guys have, a lot of you have seen our presentations before and are familiar with Barton, but I think he is the best person to talk about the infrastructure on the site.
Yeah, so I you know, sort of working from this graphic, we are we are utilizing a variety of green stormwater infrastructure techniques and systems. Sort of starting at the top, we are and it very much is all sort of networked and working together. But at the top, there we have a proposed parking lot where the playground is presently above Quarry Field. With that, we're basically swapping there's currently a parking lot below Quarry Field and a playground above, as part of sort of the master plan for the renovation of the park. Those two areas are swapped, and underneath both that parking lot and the playground, we are utilizing subsurface storage chambers, which doesn't necessarily come to mind for most people when you're thinking about green infrastructure, but it is a way for us to capture a large volume of stormwater and integrate it into sort of developed areas of the park. And that will work in conjunction with more naturalized stormwater green infrastructure. Along Quarry Field, there are a number of sort of hillside channels and seeps, some of which are perennial, some of which are intermittent, but we are creating sort of a new open naturalized conveyance channel along the edge of Quarry Field that picks up stormwater flow and seep flow from the existing hillsides. That water is then collected and brought down through a series of channels into a series of rain gardens that then cascade down into the outdoor amphitheater that is to be constructed below the Serpentine Steps. Then there's another series of rain gardens and subsurface detention chambers that will sort of capture and hold larger volumes of stormwater and then release them to a series of cascading step pools that run through. It's sort of the largest green space that you see in this graphic here. That's presently all parking lots. We are depaving that area and creating a more sort of naturalized wet meadow landscape through that sort of main corridor that then comes down to the Mission Street Bridge. Then below the Mission Street Bridge, the sort of the final treatment element we have a series of constructed wetlands that will provide sort of the final polishing and final detention before any water that hasn't been retained within the system above will flow back to the combined sewer at the very end of the project. So we're picking up all of this water through the park. We're slowing it down. We're evapotranspirating as much water as we can. We're trying to create as much habitat as we can within the park. But then ultimately, when it gets to the end of the park, there is a release back to the combined sewer in a much more sort of delayed or detained fashion. I don't know if that answers the question well. It certainly could go into more detail, but there are a large variety of different types of capture, conveyance, detention, and retention within the park.
Yeah, I see your question there, Lori. Do you want me to read that off, Maura?
Yeah. I see it as well.
So Barton, Lori's asking, Mr. Kirk, can you share the historic land use? Is it residential or industrial? I'm asking because I wonder if the water is going to be infiltrated, is going to flow through industrial residues into the aquifer.
Yeah, so the history of this site is it does have a long history of industrial use. It was actively mined and quarried and was the site of a brick factory for some time. There is a variety, and once that sort of industrial history or industrial use ended, the park was sort of reconfigured most of the land area was developed into a park in sort of the 30s and 40s that went through several different phases of baseball and football. There was an ice rink that was constructed and tennis courts, things that have come and gone over the years, but there is that legacy of industrial use. We did, as part of our due diligence for this project, do testing of the water quality that was coming through the park. We are also doing environmental testing of the soils, but I will say that all of the facilities, because of the historic fill nature of them, are actually lined facilities. So we are not we are not infiltrating this stormwater. We have the swales, the subsurface storage, the pools are all lined with either an impermeable membrane liner, or in some cases we're using a bentonite clay liner for all of those facilities, in part because the history of that soil is, we don't have information on every cubic yard of soil, but also we want to retain that water at near the surface to create habitat and to create a continuously flowing channel through the park.
Thank you. And I want to get to Mike's question next. I saw your hands raised, Mike.
Yes, many years ago, I had two questions, but the first one here is just a statement that the history, there used to be a barrel manufacturing company underneath the Mission Street Bridge many years ago. And that whole side of the hill there was filled with empty barrels that were being manufactured. But okay, to my question was, many years ago, I'm going to say 5, maybe 6 years ago, there were a bunch of people, myself included, who walked 21st Street from around Josephine Street all the way down to Carson Street. And I can't remember who the discussion was with and who all was there, but the talk was that all the water coming down 21st Street from the hills and such were going to be collected, and then a new, I think it was a 72-inch main, was going to be put in from all the way down the center of 21st Street to the river, or somewhere down that way to tie into the existing sewer line. Is any of that sound familiar to anyone?
Yeah, Mike, that project has been in the works. Barton can attest to this for probably the last 10 years. We've been having meetings on it. Western Pennsylvania Conservancy, through a design charrette, decided to take a lead on that project. They wanted to get stormwater management in this area moving forward, and they were taking the reins on that one. They've been in fundraising for the past few years, trying to raise funds for that project. I think they're currently in that phase, trying to, close some budget shortfalls that they have there. So
I had heard some time back that the project was canceled due to a lack of funds. And I don't know if
Yeah.
that's true or not. And if that ever did, they discovered $100 million laying around somewhere, would that pick up at the end of what we see here now coming down to, I guess that's Josephine Street, where that last the controlled outfall is, or the last rain gardens? Would that continue from there towards the river, or?
Yeah, I
different?
haven't, to answer your question, I haven't heard that the project is officially canceled. I do know that they're having funding issues. As far as building a large diameter sewer through there and taking the whole entire, 100-year design storm through that area, there are a number of utilities in that area, so it's really pressed for space. There is room for some stormwater management separation in that area. But as far as doing a complete separation in this area, due to all of the existing infrastructure in that road, I'm just not sure if it's ever going to be possible. So,
Okay. All right, then. Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Jamie, I see your question in the chat. I'm assuming might be the same as your hand raise. You asked about the football field, any disturbances to the football
Yes.
field?
Well, first, another industrial activity was there's a coal transfer station and an incline where the football field is, the Killeen Coal Trail Road. So, and is the football field going to be disturbed during the process?
Yeah, so during this first phase, it will not. All of the work will be from the bottom of the Serpentine Stairs down to South 21st Street. So, over the course of this year, the football field will remain active. As we get into the future phases of the stormwater project, there probably will be some disturbance up there. I think we're proposing the city is proposing a water fountain, and I think there needs to be a water line put through there. Small disturbances in that area. I think DPW's, and I would have to confirm this with them, but I think that their intention is for that, the field to be open for as long as possible, with activities.
As we get closer
As
to
Yeah,
phase one of the stormwater improvements, as we get closer to fall, we'll certainly be back here. Either an in-person meeting or another virtual meeting, however we think we can get the most draw. And we'll have more of that phasing information for you. We can speak better to, the times of year and what level of impact we'll have around.
yeah, it's true, Maura. We do need to, as we move into that phase, make sure that we're coordinating with all of the activities in the area.
Janice?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having the meeting. It's great to see everybody. I just wanted to tag on to what Mike was asking about, the hope was always to kind of make it separated sewer system from the cleaner water that's coming from the streams and springs and stormwater and so on, and be able to take that to the river. And at one point, many years ago, it was talked about having it go, sounds crazy, but to go down from 21st and then kind of make a left and then go to 18th Street, where I guess the city has a right of way to cross under the railroad track. And I guess that's one of a big obstacle, is getting past the railroad tracks into the river. So that had been talked about at one point, and I didn't know if that is completely off the table. And then also, I guess I had a glimmer of hope when I saw some of your initial diagrams that were showing the two large diameter pipes that seemed to go straight down 21st into the river, but now I'm realizing, I guess that was just a new rebuilt CSO that's gonna be going down there, and it is indeed, as Barton said, just gonna go back into combined sewer. Or is there any more work being done towards separating it, or is it just kind of a done deal at this point that it's
Yeah,
combined?
to answer your question about the South 18th, I think it's South 18th, the 54-inch separated sewer that's located in that area that we were considering as an outfall to the river. We are using that outfall for the flat separation. So the portion that I was telling you about from South 18th Street and 19th from East Carson up to Wharton, we are using that 54-inch to carry the separated flows in that area. We wanted to do more of a separation down there. It's very, very expensive to do. So for this phase of the project, we are confined to those 2 blocks, 2 streets, and I think it's maybe 4 blocks north and south. As far as the separation all the way down to the river, yeah, we did look at that. Like I said, there are space restraints fitting a large enough diameter separated pipe through that area that already has multiple utilities in it is really difficult. Also, the size of pipe that you would need to satisfy permitting requirements would, first of all, be a space crunch and also probably cost prohibitive. Barton, do you have anything to add to that as far as the permitting? I don't know if we want to get into the details of DEP permitting and how restrained we are, but yeah, we found it during the design phase to be really challenging to do that. PWSA is investing a lot with these projects in the sewer shed here for the M16. We're lining this whole sewer. This project's costing us a few $1 million just to prepare our infrastructure for the stormwater project. So another factor is just as a matter of equity, we can't base all of our stormwater and all of our sewer projects in this one sewer shed. We have to kind of distribute it throughout our system. So that's kind of some of the restraints we're dealing with.
So totally understandable, and we're so incredibly grateful for the work you guys are doing there, and just keeping our eyes on the ultimate plan that just you guys did such a beautiful job designing. And I guess I just had another question around that. Initially, like the whole pretty part going down 21st Street with all the rain gardens and so on. Initially, and Andrea Ketzel, who was the landscape architect working on it, also had emphasized to us how much of a commitment it was for those boardwalks and so on to be ADA accessible. And I just wanted to see, is that still all the plan for ADA accessibility for just kind of like the whole zigzag boardwalk?
Yeah. Barton, you're nodding.
Yeah.
There hasn't been any major revisions to the concepts that you previously saw. So I think that's still a major part of the project. Barton, can you elaborate at all?
Yeah, I would say all of the major design elements within the park that you have seen that were presented several years ago are still there. all of those features. I think that there are a few things that the city is exploring in terms of potential some cost saving items, because I think, but for the most part, it's, you know, I think some lighting elements and that sort of thing. As far as I know, the ADA accessible boardwalk is still very much part of the project.
Fantastic. And I'm sorry to take so much time, but I also just have one more question. And that was about long ago, we were super excited that it seemed that the that very cool area, the rain gardens and so on, that it seemed that it was at one point fully funded and that it was all a go, and that we could pretty much expect that that was going to happen and that we wouldn't lose the funding. And I'm just curious about how secure all that funding is at this point, to see through completion of the project. And are there any concerns or needs to get more funding, you know, a couple years down the line here? Thank you so much too for everything, guys.
PWSA is fully committed to funding the project, and from everything that I hear from the city and our partnership, they are as well. Costs have gone up over the past few years and through COVID, but I think that, you know, the overall intention is for PWSA and the city to fund the project. So we are
fantastic.
Yeah, we are moving forward, and we are, you know, hoping to get this thing in the works here by the end of the year would be our ultimate goal here. So
By the end of the year,
hopefully
What-
we're
when-
in, well, there are a lot of factors at play, but we're hoping to have a contractor secured and, you know, maybe start initial construction by the end of the year.
thank you for your perseverance. and seeing this
Yeah,
through.
this has been a long haul, and we really want to see this thing built. It's been a huge investment from all of the design team. Everyone's put so much time and energy into it, and we know that it's a good project, and we want to see it. We want to see it with our own eyes. So we're just as excited to get this thing built as you are.
And this is not related to the construction, but as we get closer to the start of these stormwater investments, I did speak to Kitty with Friends of Southside Park, and we're tentatively planning some type of kickoff event, some type of groundbreaking. So we'll certainly let you all know about that when we get closer. This sewer rehab and water main work is a little more nuts and bolts, not as exciting or sexy, but when we get to the cool stuff, we definitely want to make a big deal out of it and kick it off. So we'll let you know about that when it comes closer. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I see Evan has a question here about the line errors for Barton Kirk. I'm puzzled with the liners you described for the wetlands. I think of green infrastructure as permitting water to soak into the soil to lower the amount of flow. The liners seem counterintuitive. Can you explain a little bit more? Also, how durable are these linings? I assume plastic of some sort, some kind.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Yeah, so I certainly understand how it seems counterintuitive. So, you know, when we do stormwater management, we typically try to, wherever possible, promote infiltration into the soil below. But in certain circumstances, that is not ideal. And so we can design green infrastructure systems to operate and provide most of the sort of the benefits and function of green infrastructure in delaying, slowing down, treating the stormwater within the soils, and allowing for the trees, shrubs, and perennial grasses that are growing in those systems to evapotranspirate that water out. So we designed those systems to be a sort of detain and slow release, and they can actually function very, very well. Nearly provide many of the same benefits that a retaining and infiltrating system can. The liner material for the subsurface storage systems, so for the chambers, we typically wrap those in a high density polyethylene or low density polyethylene plastic liner that is it's a very thick, and particularly because it's not exposed to sunlight, has a very, very long lifetime. So it's a very durable liner that goes wraps around those chambers. When we do liners in living systems, we can also use the same type of plastic liner, but because this is such sort of a large, expansive living system, we're using clay liners, and it's a bentonite clay, which is it's a type of clay that when it's exposed to water, expands. So it creates a very thick layer of very, very dense clay. But actually, one of the cool things about the bentonite, it actually permits roots to penetrate through, but still seal around those. So they, if the liner does get punctured, either by roots or other objects, it actually is able to self-seal. And so it has a very long-lasting, it's basically clay is what was used to create ponds long before we had plastic. So we try to utilize those in these larger, more extensive stormwater facilities that need to be lined.
Thanks, Barton.
Thanks for that. Appreciate the explanation.
Janice? You're coming off mute.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to Evan's question, just add on that I think initially when this whole project started, I imagined also that the water would be naturally percolating down through the soil, feeding the ground table and so on, or water table. And but I guess back during the engineering, the engineers weren't real confident about some of the how the park was initially built, and was there fill there, and what was the fill, and how stable that fill might or might not be. And I think it was just they felt like it was too risky just to send water down there without knowing the maybe you could say the integrity of the ground underneath. So I don't know. I hope that makes sense what I'm saying, and I don't know
No,
if Barton,
it totally
you know
does.
more about that. Probably I do.
Yeah, thank you, Janice. That was actually a great description of the process that we went through, and some of the challenges that we're facing on this site. The reality is, no amount of sampling or boring or investigation will really tell us all the details, because much of the fill, when you're working with when you're designing a system in a space that's relatively unmanipulated by human processes, you can sort of look at patterns in the geology and the landscape and develop a pretty good sense of what the sort of the soil profiles are. When you have areas where there's been a lot of fill over the years, you can do borings and take corings in different areas to sort of give you a sense of what that's like. But when it wasn't placed in any sort of regular or way, and it's very dispersed across the landscape, it's very difficult to have a really clear picture of what that soil sort of in 3D. We do the best job that we can to understand it, but at some points we have to make a decision about whether or not we know enough that we can make that that assertion that it's safe to infiltrate water there. In a lot of cases we can, but in this particular situation, there was just too much uncertainty for us to commit to that here.
Believe me, I understand that problem from my work on Washington's Landing in the Pittsburgh Technology Center. I get that totally.
We're approaching our last few minutes here. Are there any other questions? I'm going to just share my email in the chat. Certainly happy to field any questions to the project team, get back to anybody with anything you think of maybe after we leave tonight. I'm also just going to share the project webpage if you haven't been to it yet. You can save that in your bookmarks. And we will certainly be back out here again, like I mentioned, as we get closer to construction of some of these stormwater improvements.
Yeah, there is more. There's also there is a site for the separation as well. I'll include that as soon as I find. Yeah, for the flat separation. I will.
I might have just called that Southside Flats.
I'll include it as well.
Yeah, that work will be kicking off fairly soon. There will be some more like detours and street closures and more standard construction impacts happening there as we get closer to that work starting. I'll be back in the community to talk about that as well.
Okay, great.
I can find it, and I can find the vanity link too. It's easier to share. I can see that on the back end here. So
many thanks to you all for all your work on this project. We're so appreciative, those of us who live in Southside. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Here we go. I'm about to share. If you want to keep up with the Southside Flats work, let me just put that in the chat. And we thank you all. With that being said, have a good evening, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Good.